The time for grieving over 2 lost points away to Newcastle has passed. We move on. The Premier League table doesn't look as pretty as it did before the start of the weekend, but we only sit 1 point off top spot. We've been in this position before. We've faced Chelsea away. Just look at how they're doing now. We've faced Newcastle away. A lot of teams are going to drop points there. And we've faced Arsenal at home, all within our first 6 Premier League games of the season. We remain undefeated and we're still ahead of Arsenal, who did not impress me against Leicester. They may have got the 3 points that they were expected to get, but they were far from impressive, conceding 2 goals in the second half like that and having to scrape a last minute, well, 2 last minute goals to make the scoreline look a little bit more comfortable. I thought the same about Liverpool. They did not intimidate me at all, and they haven't done at all this season, yet they're top of the Premier League. So there's a lot of positivity around Liverpool and there's a lot of negativity around Manchester City. I think some of the comments that I made yesterday, some of the positive comments were completely missed by a lot of you, unfortunately. Some of the stuff I said about Gvardiol and Grealish, who played very well, both those 2 players played very well, but there were far more performances in that Manchester City side yesterday that were below the unbelievable standards that we've set at this football club. The standards that these players are set now is through the roof. So we want to maintain that. If we start lowering those standards, the results will therefore lower as a result of that. And Pep will not allow that himself. I think he made some mistakes yesterday, but there are still some positives to take out of the fact that we are undefeated in the Premier League. We're only 1 point behind Liverpool. Like I've already said, this has not been a bad start to the season, and the fixture lists have not been very kind to Manchester City. We're suffering with an injury right now, and we have to figure it out. We have to move forward with it. There are some positives to take from the game, and there are some negatives to take from the game. Look, if you don't like the fact that I'm not blindly positive, I'm not short-sighted in my negativity either. I look at it from both ways. That's what you're going to get. You have to accept that if you come to me just for pure positivity, then you're probably going to be sorely disappointed. The same the other way. If you want pure negativity and hatred and toxicity, you're going to be equally disappointed. I tried to approach the game pragmatically, and that's upset some of you yesterday, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm sorry. But I've got admissions to make. I made mistakes in some of the things I said. One big one that I want to rectify in this video, and I'm going to do that shortly. But let's have a look at the stats before we continue, because if you have a look at the XG, first of all, yeah, what do you expect? We drew the game 1-1. We didn't even reach an XG of 1. So we overperformed in scoring goals yesterday, according to the XG. Newcastle had a 1.57 XG, which, yeah, not our best day at the office, let's call it that way. One big chance. I'll let you go through the stats yourself, first of all, but the reason I wanted to highlight a new stat that I'm not always going to include in this, but the signings that we've made in Doku and Savinho, namely Savinho was last season, statistically in Europe, one of the best crossers in European football. Statistically. An unbelievable crosser of the ball. Fantastic. And those are the crosses that you can see statistically from yesterday's game. 16 crosses from Newcastle, 5 were on the money. Accurate crosses, in other words. Crosses for Manchester City, we crossed the ball, attempted to cross the ball more than Newcastle did, with 19 attempts. 2 were successful crosses. What chance has Erling Haaland got if 2 out of 19 crosses are coming into the box accurately? The Newcastle defenders, by the way, you've got Dan Burn and Fabian Schär to get past. Nick Pope, who's quite a commanding goalkeeper in the air as well. So, yeah, it's not going to be easy to make it perfect. Every cross is not going to be perfect, but it needs to be much, much better than that. And the facts are that they crossed the ball 19 times, so there was an indication that we went out to cross the ball yesterday, but we put the best crosser of the ball on the bench. So I was very surprised to see Pep Guardiola not start Savinho, start Bernardo Silva on that right side of the pitch. I disagree with that decision. I'm entitled to. You're entitled to. You're entitled to disagree with me. That's part of the game. We don't need to get so upset as City fans at the idea of disagreeing with one another and someone saying something slightly negative is all doom and gloom. No, it's just being pragmatic. We're just approaching the game and analysing it and seeing where we can do better. That's all we're doing. So let's take it easy as City fans. 6 games in, it's not even October yet. Long way to go yet, and I still believe that this City side can do it, but my head's telling me it's an incredibly open title race that's going to be a very difficult one for Manchester City to win. More difficult than it has been in the previous 2 or 3 seasons because of the injuries that we now face. The fact that our opposition, our rivals, Arsenal, are getting better. We're having to deal with injuries as well, and those two colliding with one another make for an open title race. And I think that's perfectly normal, and we're going to talk about it. That's what we do as football fans. Let's have a look at the player ratings. Ederson. I thought he had a great first half, fantastic first half, and it just sort of went to pot, really, in the second half. There was a moment in the second half that surprised me where I've not seen Ederson do this in a long time, is that everyone forward, mate. Get forward. I don't want to play it short to either play. I'm going to go long. Send everyone forward, all the defenders forward, and like get to the halfway line. I'm going to lump this forward. I haven't seen City do that in a long time, which again, my title yesterday for the video was Man City looked shook. They did. They looked like they were just out of the depths a little bit and then feeling the pressure of St. James's Park and Newcastle. It was a below par performance from Manchester City overall, and I think that the nerves came to play and they forced it a little bit at the end of the game, and we just couldn't break them down and resorting to go long. But some of the passes Ederson was doing in the first half, on the floor passes, I'm talking like 40, 50 yard passes, but like side foot passes on the deck. Brilliant passes. Some weren't held up by Haaland well enough for me, a couple of them. One was, Grealish was fouled a couple of times. There were some nice balls into Bernardo Silva. Ederson's distribution in the first half was fantastic, but it did decline in the second half a little bit. He obviously gave the penalty away, but he's got 3 saves to his name. I've given him a 7 out of 10, which is bordering on generous, to be honest, because of the penalty. But I mean, there was so many mistakes that went on in the City 11 ahead of Ederson having to come out and make that save. He's got to come out and do something, hasn't he, in that situation? So I've given him a 7 out of 10, bordering on generous, but I think, yeah, okay, let's call it a 7. Walker, I've given him a 6. Now, I want to hold my hands up first of all, because I've looked back. Obviously, when I was watching the game live yesterday, my focus was on, was it a penalty? Wasn't it a penalty? Did Gordon actually dive? Did he not dive? I think it was a penalty. He just clips Ederson. I was just looking for that contact. That's what I wanted. I didn't analyse the game properly like I have done now, where I've actually gone back and watched what happened during that moment. Kyle Walker should have got up with the line. I was wrong to say that those defenders shouldn't have been as high. I don't think they should have been as high. I think Kyle Walker, I think the whole team should have been in the same line. That's what we do as a football team. We work together. But by going by that same logic, Kovacic shouldn't be part of that line. He was part of the defensive line that had Gvardiol, Diaz and Akanji all in a line. Kovacic was part of it. Why is he there? He's the defensive midfielder. He's supposed to be in front of that line. If you look back at the goal now, I think Ilkay Gundogan and Rico Lewis's positioning. Gundogan in particular, because he's got Bruno Guimaraes in his vision. He can see the passer of the ball, Joel Linton, and he can see Ilkay Gundogan, who stood 2 yards in front of him. He's the danger man. He's in front of you. He's in your vision. In your eyesight, you've got to be able to see that man. You've got to sense danger there and close that gap to Bruno Guimaraes. Mistake 1, Gundogan not close enough to Bruno Guimaraes. Mistake 2, Kovacic, the gap between attacking midfielders and defensive midfielders is far too big. That is the most dangerous part of the football pitch, is that central midfield there. If you can get a player with Bruno Guimaraes' quality to sit in the middle of a pitch like that with all that space, he's going to find a pass. Mistake 3, Kyle Walker should have pushed up. I agree. Kyle Walker should have definitely got involved in that line. I actually think the whole team should have been deeper in that situation, though. I still maintain the whole team, but Kyle Walker should have had the awareness, right, I can't be the only one who says, yep, I come to my line. He should have gone to their line, because those three, that he should have sensed that those three are doing their job, so he needs to step up, rather than say everyone else drop. But ideally, everyone should have been deeper. The whole team should have been deeper in that situation, which would have put Kovacic in a better position. It would have put making it more difficult for Anthony Gordon to find space and just give him that amount of space. We're 1-0 up, don't forget. We're 1-0 up, so don't forget the fact that the circumstances don't require us to be so high up the pitch. It was, not impressive defending from everyone, really, the whole team in that particular moment. But yeah, I agree. Kyle Walker should have pushed up in that situation, so he gets a 6 out of 10. His numbers aren't bad, by the way. Defensively, clearances, interceptions, block shots, won most of his ground duels. He didn't play that badly other than that one moment, and it was costly. Akanji, similar. Good numbers clearance-wise. He was reasonable, didn't win many of his aerial duels, but I don't think Ruben Diaz did either. I think we'll get onto him shortly as well. Distribution has always been solid from Akanji. Popped into midfield occasionally here and there. Again, yeah, I can trust him in midfield, but he's not ever going to be up to the standards of Rodri. He had a tough day because of, I think Anthony Gordon's a tough opponent to look after, but 6.5 for Manuel Akanji. Gvardiol giving him man of the match, 8 out of 10 for Josko. The finish was absolutely sensational, and a lot of that is just, that score is that. Just the goal alone gets him a big bump in his score for me, because that was absolutely sensational. The way he took it, the fact that it looked like he was going to absolutely drill it with his left foot, the composure from a defender. I've just not seen many defenders play like this before, you know what I mean? To chop it back onto his right foot and then not to lash at it and just whip it with his right foot. He just passes it into that far corner. Took a little deflection, but I think it was going in anyway, to be honest. Yeah, defensively as well, absolutely fantastic, which again helps his score go even higher. 2 clearances, 2 interceptions, 2 tackles, a key pass to his name, won more than half of his ground duels, and he entered a lot of them in a side that's very physical. Really good from Josko. I mean, what a player he is. What a signing he's proven to be. 8 out of 10. Man of the match. Ruben, same as Akanji, giving him a 6.5. Yep, there's those aerial duels I told you about a little bit. 10 aerial duels between Akanji and Ruben Diaz. When you're going up against Jacob Murphy, Anthony Gordon, and Harvey Barnes, I would have thought 10 aerial duels, more than 2 of them would have been won between Diaz and Akanji combined, because it's not Isak you're going into those aerial duels with. Anyway, it's not the end of the world. Defensively, they were okay at times, but tackles and clearances, similar performance to Akanji, really. There was one moment in the first half that Diaz was just a bit switched off. There was a long ball over the top of his head that he didn't realise Anthony Gordon was coming in behind him. A little bit switched off. I don't think it was Ruben Diaz's most impressive performance yesterday, but he didn't drop a major clanger or anything like that. But yeah, 6.5 for Ruben. Rico, yeah, I thought he was all right. I think the physicality side of the game is what was always going to be in question when you're playing against Joel Linton, Tonali and Bruno. He actually won 2 out of the 3 ground duels that he entered, but I would like to have entered into more ground duels, to be honest. It sort of went on around him a little bit yesterday. Always full of energy, always full of tenacity, and his work rate is fantastic. He's just been put in a side and asked to play a little bit higher. He didn't really sit that much along Kovacic. There was a large portion of the game where Rico Lewis was asked to push forward a little bit. And in that job, you've got to create, mate. You've got to be able to create and find some passes that are a little bit more risky than just sideways passes to Bernardo Silva or out to Grealish. Try and find Haaland a little bit more frequently, especially if you're playing higher up the pitch in Manchester City's midfield. Again, that goes back to Pep Guardiola's midfield selection. He's putting players that aren't really known for creativity in positions where you want them to be creative. So I felt it was a bit harsh on Rico to play in that role. I feel like if he was going to sit alongside Kovacic, it makes more sense. I feel like that position suits him a lot better. But he couldn't have enough impact on the game to in an attacking sense to give him a higher score than 6.5. Ilkay, proper stinker, mate. Unfortunate, and I'm gutted about it. I feel like there's plenty more to come from Ilkay Gundogan. He's just finding his feet. I think we're going to see a flurry of goals from Gundogan, hopefully at the end of the season, like we often get from him, where he just finds the steadiness in his consistency, in his form going forward into the season. Now you want to see more from Gundogan, but it was a really poor performance, technically well below Gundogan's standards. Decision making was pretty below standards as well. I've already highlighted the mistake for the goal. That was in the second half, where he actually didn't have his, he came off in the 66th minute. He didn't actually have a bad second half. The first half though, he was all over the place, positionally, technically. Just simple things, basic touches, just miscontrolling it. The decision to lump it or try to lump it over Pope's head. If you're going to pick that decision, you've got to make sure you're accurate with it, because that was a key opportunity for Manchester City, because he had Haaland ahead of him. If I remember rightly, I think Grealish was approaching late. It was in a 3-on-2 situation. We were outnumbering and he went for the difficult one. And okay, you got to get something behind that ball and get it over Nick Pope's head. But yeah, there was simple moments where it was decision making, and the crosses, again, I've got to highlight that. 6 crosses, most of those are corners, by the way. Still, 6 crosses attempted, 0 successful. Yeah, not his greatest performance from Ilkay Gundogan, disappointing, but he's got 2 key passes to his name. One was to Erling Haaland, we made the right decision in the first half, but he didn't take it with him, Haaland. It was a good ball from Gundogan, which was a rarity in that first half from Gundogan, because he wasn't having his greatest game, but he made that one. That was a correct decision. It was a great ball to Haaland, but Haaland didn't take it with him. So the whole team cohesiveness just wasn't there yesterday. I just don't think we were quite at the races. So Gundogan gets a 5 for me because I thought he was well below the standards we expect of him. But yeah, he'll turn it round. I have every confidence that he'll turn it round. Kovacic, giving him a 6.5. It was a second half performance that was pretty solid. I don't think there was anything to complain about in the second half. I felt like he should have closed down that gap. Other than that, I felt like he was pretty good. That gap between the midfield was too big. Kovacic has got to learn to push up. He made that mistake against Ipswich. If you go and look against Ipswich and the first goal for Ipswich, please go and look at that first goal and look at the gap. You have to rewind it a little bit for 20 seconds. But if you look at the counter-attacking opportunity that was presented to them, it's because the counter-press wasn't there from Kovacic. And that's what Rodri is impeccable at. It's one of the best attributes to Rodri's game. And Kovacic has got to learn that ball can be transitioned much quicker than it needs to be at times, and he can rectify those situations just by pushing forward a little bit quicker, not jogging, sprinting, get forward into that position and get into the faces of the other midfielders. But yeah, 4 tackles is really good. So defensively, other than the moment I'm talking about, he was pretty good, but struggling to have a creative impact again from Mateo Kovacic. But that's the midfield Pep picked, 6.5. Phil Foden came on and his season's just not got going yet, has it? It's just not got started yet for Phil Foden. He's just struggling to have any impact in the game. He came on for Gundogan at the 66th minute, played 24 minutes of football. The numbers aren't bad at all, actually, from Phil Foden. It's just the fact that we're talking about 20 minutes, 24 minutes of football is why I've given him a 6. I feel like those numbers could have grown more. He certainly didn't come on and play badly. He had that one big moment, the shot on target you can see there, that I thought, if he finds the corner, he comes away a hero, doesn't he? And it could be a very different scoreline and a very different feeling to Manchester City right now. But it's just not working for Phil Foden right now, and I think he needs a run of games, starting games. He should have started yesterday for me. It should not have been Rico Lewis. If you're playing Kyle Walker, you shouldn't have played Rico Lewis just on his own in midfield. You should have played Rico Lewis and pushed him into midfield alongside Kovacic and had Foden ahead of him instead of Rico in that position for me. That should have been the starting 11. But yeah, 6 out of 10 for Phil Foden. Again, same as Gundogan, there's more to come. Jack Grealish, I've given him an 8. I thought he had a really good game. The stats back me up. He's getting better. I think Pep's picking him for a reason. I certainly didn't have a problem with him starting yesterday. I wanted to Doku. That was my preference. I would have rather have seen Doku start the game, but I think Pep proved me wrong in that side of the pitch. I definitely don't think I was wrong on the other side of the pitch, but this side of the pitch, Jack Grealish and Pep together, combination of the two, the decision that Pep made and the performance that Jack put onto the pitch, he played really well. 5 key passes, mate. An assist as well. I don't know what. There's still people who want more from Jack. He got the assist, and he was pulling strings yesterday. 97% passing accuracy is ball retention to die for, mate. Do you know what I mean? That's fantastic. He's taking on his players. 4 dribble attempts. 3 of them were successful. Yeah, shot was blocked from Jack Grealish, as they always are. 11 ground duels, he won 8 of them. He even got back and took one to the bollocks as well in the first half that was vital. Gvardiol was out of position at that moment, and Jack Grealish doing the dirty work, getting back and getting in the way and taking one in the gonads. Do you know what I mean? Love that from Jack Grealish. Well played, Jack Grealish. 8 out of 10. I've just got to give man of the match to Gvardiol for that finish, mate. Just for the goal itself was absolutely brilliant. But who assisted it? This man. Well played, Jack Grealish. Bernardo Silva, giving him a 5.5, a very flat and underwhelming performance from Bernardo Silva on the right side of the pitch. He's not had a good few weeks, to be honest. He's not really, and he's starting to be, he's always been this undroppable player for Pep Guardiola. He plays him in every big game, but is his age starting to play a part? His performances aren't quite the heights that we're used to. We need to see a little bit more from Bernardo Silva. And I feel like he played a little bit better when he was tucked inside. There was a brighter spark to Manchester City when Foden was in the middle and Bernardo Silva was in there with him in the middle of Manchester City's midfield. And Savinho on the right, the best crosser of a football. Yeah, 3 crosses from Bernardo Silva as well, 0. It's not good enough. It's not good enough on that right side of the pitch. He's not a winger. I feel like he's more suited inside. 3 dribble attempts, none of them were successful. But yeah, defensive work rate, I've popped them in there to give him some credit at least, because he's always works hard, doesn't he? He does never gives below 100% Bernardo Silva. So the effort is not in question. Just that little bit of quality was missing yesterday on that right side of the pitch. So 5.5 for Bernardo Silva. Doku, 9 minutes of football. What do you expect him to do? I don't think he came on and lit the pitch up. I thought Savinho was much better in the same 9 minutes of football that was available to the two players. Doku just... yeah, he struggled, but he came on and he had Livramento to deal with. You know, a fresh new substitute had come on for Newcastle. He's fresh, full of energy. Livramento's got a point to prove. A very good player in himself, and Doku struggled to get past him. And he didn't even... well, I thought he did dribble attempt, but technically he's not gone down as a dribble because Livramento just went alongside him, couldn't get past him. One cross attempt, it wasn't successful. I remember it was an outstretched left foot, just hopeful cross more than anything. But yeah, need to see the Doku we saw against Watford was brilliant in that first half, but again, it was Watford. He's not really hit the ground running this season either, Doku. So yeah, again, I'm hoping to see more from him as the season progresses. So I've given him a 6 out of 10. Savinho, I've given him a 6.5 because there was a real impact there, I thought. You know, you can see that in the numbers as well. 2 ground duels, he won them both. 1 dribble attempt, he was successful. He actually completed a cross. One of the 50% of our successful crosses were completed by Savinho. Do you know what I mean? We had 19 and half of the successful ones were by this man. You know, so, well, this man is this part of your screen. On my screen, it's there. For you, it's there. But, you know what I mean? It was disappointing to not see him start. And clearly there was an indication to cross the ball yesterday. So why not start this man, the best crosser of the football last season in Europe? It's a baffling decision, that, for me. I've given him a 6.5. He's got to start more games now for me, Savinho, because there's so many glimpses. It's starting to get obvious. He should be starting all the games if he's fit, and if we start managing minutes, I understand that. But yeah, he played 45 minutes against Watford. He should be ready for a full at least 70 minutes in this game. Starts for me. And he should be starting. He'll probably start against Bratislava and then be rested for bloody Fulham. That's probably what's going to happen, and I totally disagree with that. But we'll see. Haaland, what do you expect? I've given him a 6, 19 crosses, 2 were successful. What do you expect him to do with that? I felt like he could have done much better with his hold-up play in the first half. There was one moment where he did some fantastic hold-up play right outside the dugout, where Dan Burn stood on his Achilles heel. He spun, sent Gundogan away, and Gundogan then sent Bernardo Silva away. It amounted to nothing, but that was fantastic hold-up play from Erling Haaland. It's the only moment of the game where I can speak highly of the hold-up play, though, because it was brilliant. There was 3 or 4 other moments where his hold-up play was not good enough, like Fabian Schär, Dan Burn, physical guys. They're going to give him a battle to deal with. 4 ground duels, he won 2 of them, as you can see. But yeah, you know, the numbers aren't that bad from Erling Haaland. 69% possession, passing accuracy, is actually, it's quite high for Haaland. But a key pass, 2 dribbles, and one of them was successful. He won 1 out of the 3 aerial duels. They're not bad numbers, but he's on the pitch to score goals. And if you're going to cross the ball as poorly as we did yesterday and give him so few chances yesterday, I think there was the one chance in the first half, early on in the first 20 minutes, that he didn't connect with that ball well enough, and it sort of dribbled towards Nick Pope early on. That's one of the shots on target. Could have done better there. But yeah, I think the whole team could have done better, and I think that yesterday, and I think that's the point that we all need to recognise, that Manchester City are going to have off days. And when those off days come, I think me and all the other content creators and all the other pundits, they are more than entitled to have their say on what went wrong and what went well. If there's positives, I'll talk about them. If there's negatives, I'm going to talk about them. That's the way a football match should be analysed as far as I'm concerned. But get your opinions in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.